Teams in Turkey are working around the clock to clear the remains of decimated buildings after several large earthquakes and thousands of aftershocks rocked the southeast this month. The current death toll has surpassed 44,200, with more than 30 million people affected. That's very good to hear, at the very least, that all this help and medical help as well is being provided. But at the same time, how is the recovering operation proceeding on the one hand, and also how are the people, the survivors, coping on the other hand there in Kahramanmaraş? And March 8th marks International Women's Day. It celebrates the achievements of women in all fields and raises awareness on women's and gender issues. But the day also highlights the disparity between men and women in the workforce. This contributes to the stymieing of women and cost the global economy trillions of dollars. In its latest report, Moody's Analytics says closing the gap in wages between men and women could boost the world's economy by around 7% or $7 trillion. Although women invest more on their education than men in OECD countries, many land in lower level and lower paid positions below their skill level. The global gender gap has been closed by 68.1% so far, but at the current rate, it will take 132 years to reach full parity. Let's get more on this now with Yasmin Besen-Casino in New Jersey. She's a professor of sociology at Montclair State University. Many thanks for joining us today. So, Professor, it's really interesting. I thought that this week, IMF's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva herself, said that she had to work twice as hard as men to be equal to her male colleagues. How would you describe this problem, this situation in 2023? Because she also said that there was a step back in recent years rather than advancement.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Much progress has been made in terms of gender equality.
More on this, let's go to economist Taha Arvas, who is an adjunct professor of finance at Boğaziçi University in Istanbul. Taha, thank you very much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
So we've seen Powell's speech really send markets into a tailspin this week,
Right.
moving currencies, but also stocks and, most importantly, also bonds. First of all, why? What's happened?
So what the Federal Reserve Chairman is trying to do is trying to telegraph this news to the world, and that's why he purposely tried to scare the markets, really.
I mean, in a way, he's managed, if you really wanted to
Right.
scare the markets, right? Because we've seen that higher interest rates can be a problem.
Right.
We've seen SVB, this bank yesterday, well, the stock price collapsed 60% and another 60% today. First of all, can you help us make sense of what's been happening, but also what's the contagion risk there?
Right, so that's the major risk. It's not that SVB Bank by itself is a large, it would be, if that happened, it would be a nightmare for everyone.
Meanwhile, the US has just reported the widely anticipated monthly jobs report, which could influence the Federal Reserve's monetary policy. The world's largest economy has added 311,000 new jobs in February, beating analyst expectations. The figure is well below January. Thank you very much for joining us today. So, Professor, I wonder, is there any assessment yet on the impact of the damage from these two earthquakes? I'm reading reports that point out to the fact that the affected region was once responsible for 10% of national GDP. What's the damage? Will those cities in that region ever be accessible again? Because we know that critical infrastructure was hit, not just roads and bridges and airports, but also schools and hospitals. What needs to be done now? What's the main priority?
I have no doubt.
Uganda and its partners have begun the initial drilling process in its oil-rich Albertine region to start production by 2025. Despite criticism, the East African country is hoping its oil wealth creates more economic growth and problems. Darren Allen Kiyuni reports.
Cuthbert Arinaitwe is living a new life.
Turkey begins rebuilding efforts in earnest, even as work on clearing the debris continues across the 11 quake-affected provinces. Hello and welcome to TRT World, live from Istanbul. I'm Ludovica Brignola. Also ahead on the program, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky promises victory in 2023 as he addresses. Our correspondent Ubay Shabandar is here with me in the studio for more. Ubay, we've had some high-profile donations, and last but not least, the Turkey's central bank. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, with millions in dire.
Incredible, a very, very vast region, right? Yeah. And how important is it right now to receive this money for these cities? Because as you say, even if you're so lucky to still have your house or your apartment in that region, the schools are no longer there, right? The hospitals are no longer there. So they're not, the cities are not really accessible now. How is that money going to be spent?
It is going to be for